To have a third speech this evening, and this is about a topic I know very little about. Brandon is going to tell us about beekeeping, and he claims it's supposed to be a fun hobby for the average backyard apiary. What they don't tell you about is all the sweat that you have to put into it, but the reward is sweet liquid gold. 6 stings into his work for the year, Brandon has learned more about the honeybee and the average nerd. Please welcome Brandon tonight on Bees Everywhere.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, despite it looking like a specimen cup, we'll get to that later. I've always had a fascination with bees. Growing up in Olympia, there was the Olympia Beekeepers, or whatever group they called themselves. And they would always have an event at the fair, or a booth at the fair, with the observation hive where you could watch the bees and look for the queen, and then the honey sticks. Because what kid doesn't love free sugar that the parents say, oh yeah, that's healthy because it's natural sugar, so it's good for you. I get one, maybe two, maybe sneak a third one in. The old guys love little kids at the fair, like, here, take another one, just don't tell your mom. It was good times. That fascination with bees, as an adult, started turning into this idea of, yeah, I should keep them. Keep them in my backyard. What's the worst that can happen, right? Get honey out of it, right? Sure. Get some pollination. Well, I had this idea for several years, and finally last year we put in a garden in my front yard in East Wenatchee, and I got very few tomatoes. I got very few zucchini. And if you plant a zucchini and you're not getting zucchini, you got a problem. I realized my problem was lack of pollinators. I had the local pollinators, the mason bees and all those, but I didn't have honeybees anywhere around me. I said, now's the time to act. Let's put some hives together. I joined the local bee society here and set up hives. April was my first time to have hives. I was pretty excited. I have 2 hives now, currently in my side yard. Great use for an RV pad for someone who's in his 30s and doesn't have an RV. Now, there's a lot to learn about bees. One thing is they're a wild animal that you keep in a box and hope that they don't fly away. Great investment, right? I put $300 into these things that I hope won't fly away, but could fly away anytime they're not happy with whatever I'm doing. But here's something very interesting. Do any of you know how honey is made? I'm not talking about slicing the frames and extracting it, spinner and all that good stuff. Do you guys know how honey is made? Do any of you like honey?
Yes.
Yes.
It's bee vomit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's delicious bee vomit. It is one of the only manufactured foods that is all natural. What happens is the little honeybee flies to the flower, gets its nectar, flies back, puts it in what's called a crop, and there's enzymes in there, and it starts working away. The bee comes back to the hive, says, hey, I got some nectar for you. The next bee says, ah, in he goes. Bee walks around the hive a little bit, starts the enzymes going, then walks up to another bee, says, hey, I got some nectar. The bee says, ah, so on and so forth, until there's enough enzymes in there that it starts working its way into honey. When nectar is first put into a honeycomb, it's the consistency of water, but there's a lot of sugar in there. The bees spend their time fanning the water out and evaporating it until it eventually becomes the consistency of what you have in front of you. Who still likes honey? I think it's delicious, no matter how much you know or little you know about it. One other thing I learned about bees, or not one, but one of the other interesting things about bees that I find them fascinating, is they make their own air conditioner. What kind of insect do you know that can make its own air conditioner in their hive? So we have a hive. It's 100 degrees outside. They like it about 95, about body temperature for us. It's really hot. What do? Well, they have fans built in, right? So they all stand around or wherever they designate and start flapping their wings. Cool, that gets the air moving. But it doesn't cool it down. You're still sending 100-degree air into the hive. So the bees, however they designate, nobody knows how, say, you know what? I need to go get some water. They fly over to my pond, in my case, get a drink of water, bring it back, and then they go and spit it into the hive. swamp cooler. Pretty genius, isn't it? I think it's pretty genius. For a little insect that doesn't know anything. Another thing, how many of you in school were taught that the queen rules the hive in the honeybee hive?
Oh, yeah.
That should be all of us. That is absolutely garbage. The honeybee hive is a democracy. Really, it is. If the workers don't like the queen, she's messing up, not laying eggs enough, for whatever reason they deem, they will kick her out. She comes back, they will kill her. They'll kill her either by eating off her wings, and she'll be kicked out without wings, so she can't fly back in, or they will hug her to death. The honeybees like to maintain a temperature, so you get a honeybee, another honeybee, just a big mass of honeybees. Eventually, she's going to die of heat, getting hugged to death. Now, here's something else that's interesting with this democracy. Say they need to raise a new queen for whatever reason, have these queen cells made, so on and so forth. They decide if they want one queen to hatch, and yeah, she can rule the roost, or let's have a battle of the queens. They will go and open however many queen cells they deem necessary and have them duke it out. And they will stand around and watch it as a spectator sport. Even more interestingly, scientists have removed two queens battling out, put them in a self-contained area, and the larger queen always wins. Makes sense. Two queens of unequal size in the spectator arena doesn't matter. It could be a random chance. Somehow the bees influence who wins and who loses. Now, isn't that an interesting democracy? Aside from the little bit of killing the losing leader, which some debate is possible in this country, I'm not going to go there. That's politics I don't want to debate. The one thing that is the most hardest work is wearing the suit when it's 110 degrees outside. For $65, they can get me the regular canvas suit. Not that deal. It has the veil and everything else. For $140, I get one ventilated. Have to start selling some honey, don't I? Now, what you have in front of you is a sample of this honey. And you're welcome to taste it as much as you want. Bee vomit. It's pretty tasty. Apparently, it's pretty marketable. The reward? Really sweet.